Welcome to Caribbean Chat, the platform where Caribbean people of excellence get to tell their story. Our aim is to ensure that your contributions are acknowledged and celebrated. My guest for today is a multifaceted, multi-layered, mindful man of faith, whose socio-political activism is embedded in all his labors of love. He's a singer, songwriter, musical arranger, music producer, record engineer, filmmaker, entrepreneur, and recently added the title of author to his long list of accomplishments. He began his musical sojourn at age 5, playing piano in his homeland of Bethany Village, Mount Pleasant, Tobago. As if on a predestined whirlwind, by age 8, he was playing in the church choir for an orchestra and even started playing steel pan. Let it not be said he rested on his laurels. At age 14, he began playing piano in local hotels and bands. His musical education culminated in his earning a music business Bachelor of Science degree from Full Sail University. His entrepreneurial spirit knows no bounds. He teaches music. He has his own catalog of music, digital marketing company, and online music publication company. His collaborative musical endeavors include, but are not limited to, B2K, Horace Brown, 112, Courtney Fadling, His Voice, Lovina Walcott, Aquanet Chinnery, Delroy Songton, Miriam Colette Williams, Nudge, Nadira Norjahan, and me, yes me, Curtis Henry. His television affiliations have been with Dr. 90210, the Janice Dickerson Modeling Agency, Property Ladder, How Clean Is Your House, Millionaire Matchmaker. His film credits include The Lockdown Club, All I Want, Moving In, Blue Suitcase, Urban Heartbreak, and the documentary On the Road to Love, Pain, and Redemption. He launched his own solo career with Soca Therapy in 2013, The Return, The Gospel According to Sam, Redeem the Dream, My Blackness, Joy to the World, Time to Move, Intimate Moods, Sensual Moods, The Rebirth, Sweat, Tears, and Mileage. Ladies and gentlemen, Tobago on the map. Please join me in welcoming the inimitable Samuel Archer.
I was listening to the overture, and I was wondering if he was talking about me. It sounded real, very high, very, very high.
Well, sir, I have to give thanks to the great team that we have here putting everything together, and we worked and putting a lot of effort here on this particular one. You have to give thanks to Karen Forrester, who's our lead writer here on the show, and she put in a lot of work into this one.
Shout out to Miss Forrester. Hi, Karen.
Well, she's not here to hear you, but she will see the recording. So, Sam, once again, I said it's a pleasure having you here with us. If I didn't know better myself, I would say you about 105 years old, man. with all those accomplishments, you make me have to do some introspective look at myself, because I've witnessed most of this, not from the age of 5 or 8, but I've witnessed most of these accolades, most of these accomplishments. I've been there for them. And now that I look back at my own life, I have to scratch my head and say, what are you doing? Because this guy have done so much. So, I've noticed from the aforementioned names that you've produced calypso, R&B, gospel. Is there any musical genre that you haven't delved into?
There's a few. There's South American music. There's East Indian music. I've done some East Indian influence music, but I haven't delved into it. And I guess the Asian vibe, But in terms of the Afrocentric vibes and the diaspora genres, I've definitely delved into, calypso, soca, world beat, uh, dancehall, reggae, salsa, Afro-Cuban, jazz, contemporary jazz, soul, R&B, hip hop, funk. So those are some genres that I've tapped into.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of your music, it's multidimensional. Just the way you are as an artist, nothing is along the same vein. No two songs are alike. You have a lot of spiritual content. You have a lot of political content in there. Even though I've never known you to be a political activist, so to speak. But let me ask you something. If you had the opportunity to sit and talk, let's say to a historical Black political activist, who would you sit and talk to and why?
Marcus Garvey.
Wow.
I would definitely want to rock with Marcus Garvey. I'd want to know what inspired him to leave Jamaica, to come here and actually follow the path that he followed, and to make, he was very, very impactful. One of the most impactful figures that we've ever seen, that other world leaders took a page out of his book to do their thing. So he's definitely someone that I would want to rock with if I had the opportunity.
But he was also vilified for the position he took on a lot of things. This shows me the mindset that you have. You're not playing it safe.
Well, to a degree. When you come from the world of music, and he was also a songwriter too. When you come from the world of, he wrote some songs in his as in messages though to the masses while he was here. But artists normally are what we would probably call the watchers. We see things happening and we tap into that energy and we write about it. You look at Bob Marley, you look at Peter Tosh, you look at a vast amount of artists that tap into the current events, and they would pretty much give a description of what's happening. Even in hip hop, rappers, they talk about what's happening, what's going on around them, or what's in the environment. So they give you they paint a picture for you and give you the real, and they may even throw in a solution to what it is. But at least the music gives you a timeline. So sometimes when you might hear a song and then you might remember, oh, this is when I got my first kiss, or when I got my first spanking, or when I graduated from somewhere, or I got arrested when this song was playing. So it's like the music sort of gives you a timeline, and especially if the song is commenting on what's happening in that moment, especially like in Calypso, when it's carnival time, and you're listening to the Marche Gras, and you're listening to the certain
social
commentary happening. Thank you. They give you a reality on what's happening, as pinching as it might be. And then 20 years later, you hear that song, and that song, you tap into that and say, this Calypsonian spoke about this particular thing that was happening in the government, or this thing was happening in the economy, or this thing was happening in business, or in there was food, or there was we were having yellow fever injections when this was going on. You know what I mean? So they just really put that information out there for you.
This brings me to a couple of your songs: Redeem the Dream, A Dream Deferred, and Barbershop, are reminiscent of another time which infiltrates present day. Do you foresee a day when we can get beyond racism, ethnicism, and communication barriers?
Wow. I would love to. And I think there's a chance of it happening. I think what we've been seeing in the last recent month, month and a half, there's a couple of things that have passed in law in the U.S. that folks have been trying to pass for years and couldn't get it happening. We have the issue with the Confederate flags. I mean, it's been years people have been trying to, get these things off of national monuments and buildings, and um, and in the last month, voting has happened. Corporations have said, look, we're not supporting this, and it's just upside down right now. So in terms of racism, there's a chance that we can get beyond it eventually, but it's been going on for a while, so it's a tough call.
Tell me, what was your motivation for My Blackness?
My Blackness reaches a lot of different dimensions for me. You look at where we begin. You look at the struggles we have today. And we have to deal with a lot of failure. We have to deal with a lot of rejection. We have to deal with a lot of we have to deal with prejudice. We have to deal with bias. We have to deal with being marginalized. And when I did My Blackness, it had a lot to do with the sadness that I saw with us as a people, and not just in the U.S., but across the board. I was looking at the world globally. I was looking at what was happening in the motherland. I'm looking at what my brothers and sisters are facing here, what we're facing in the Caribbean. And everywhere I turn, there was some unseen hand messing us up in a big way. So we're not on a revenge quest. We're trying to make it to the end of the week. So at some point I said, why are you afraid of my blackness? What are you worried about? And that song was a way for me to bring the feeling, bring the subject in the forefront. And it was also like a B-side to It Will Never Change. Because It Will Never Change, I dealt with the Amadou Diallo, the Abner Lawima case. Yes. I dealt with, lynchings and things of that nature. So in a sense, it was a B-side to that. And it was just to let folks know, look, we're not here to mess with you. We're not even in a position to do anything to you.
Well, actually we are. When someone is afraid of your abilities, that's when they try to suppress you. If you remember a situation, something just came to mind with the Olympics some years back if you remember Nancy Kerrigan and her other skater who was supposed to be her teammate. If she had not been worried about Nancy Kerrigan's talent, she would not have hired someone to go and try to break her legs before she got out.
Oh.
You remember that situation?
Yes, I remember that case.
In a lot of cases, it's jealousy, envy, and just people just simply being scared of our abilities. This is why we are ostracized, why we are left out of certain things, because we have that ability to surpass others with our performances, our intelligence, whatever have you. So yes, they are afraid. a lot of people are afraid, and hence racism.
Right. Well, racism is an interesting word, and I've heard a lot of different definitions of it. But the one that really makes sense to me is where people take racism and want to use it in the same sentence as uh, prejudice or bias, and it's not really that, or discrimination. So, well, you know what it is,
Oh,
but I'll just say for all listening
I've lived
or
it.
looking audience, right?
I have lived it.
You've lived it, right? So for the looking audience or the listening audience, racism has to be what racism is where your hate is combined with some form of action. Where
When you're in a
someone,
position of power to do something,
you're in a position of power, so you can actually say, you know what, black folks would have to drink from this pipe from tomorrow. They can't come over here and use that faucet over there. When you can put that into place and change the outcome of the person you're doing it to, then that's racism.
I saw an interesting meme on Facebook, I think it was recently, where some folks were complaining about signs on establishments stating that no entry without a mask. And they were complaining about that. And we've only been going through this for what, 2 months now? Yeah. So someone said, could you imagine what it felt like when that sign said, no entry if you're black? And we had to endure this for hundreds of years. And it's only been a couple of months for you, and you're already losing your mind. So imagine what it felt like for generations upon generations of people and the after effects of that. And when they tell us that we need to forget about this, that was so long ago.
Those folks who feel that way, a lot of times they need to do some research. They're just looking at the current events and they're seeing things happening, but they haven't looked into, well, why is this happening over here? Or why is that happening? They haven't looked into the why. They're just looking at, when one group says, okay, Black Lives Matter, then they jump in, well, all lives matter. And then now you have to explain to them why you're saying Black Lives Matter. But the point that you have to explain it, aren't you living in the same world that we are? So what makes you think that?
They don't see that. Brings me back again to another meme I saw where someone said, for you all to understand this, imagine if you as a man should ask your wife, do you love me? Do you love me as your man? And she said, I love all men. How would that make you feel as a husband? It means everything about you when you try to separate or bring everyone else in on that question or on that statement.
Right, that's correct. I love that example. That's a very, very good example. Really, really good example.
Looking at everything you've done over the course of your life, your music, your political activism, your teaching, which is something I want to get to a little later on. Your journey thus far has been varied with highly productive things. What has given you the most pleasure thus far?
To see them come to life, to see the ideas come to life is a dream come true. And at one time I thought the dreams coming to life and seeing the money with it would be nice. But that the money part hasn't really happened yet.
Yet, that's the key word.
Yes. But I'm saying that so that folks could realize that they have the potential and the opportunity for their dreams to come true in terms of achieving certain goals. But when I set out to do a single, we did a single in 91, very, very first single. It was a single, a gospel single, myself and Terrence Russell. We recorded it by Al Richburg in Brooklyn. And we had never seen our stuff on a cassette that got, on a printed cassette with your name on it and the old card and all of that. So when we set out to do it, it was like an adventure. Like, we put in these 2 songs on this thing, and we went in and recorded the songs and had it mixed, and it was a learning process for us. And then to send the stuff off to disc makers and make sure that the cover looked right and the information was correct, and then they pressed the cassettes, and then the cassettes arrived in the mail, and then now you pick up you open the box and you pick up the project in your hand, and you're like, wow,
like finding gold,
man. The feeling, you're like, wow, this is, and then now you got to take it to the next level now. So that's when we started selling it. We took a few, Terrence took some, I had some, we had a couple of people, you gave away a few. And we started dealing with the stores, and then we went to the radio station. Actually, I mailed it out to the radio station, and I talk about that in another interview. But what it eventually, the stuff ended up on the radio. And that was like a whole next experience. Never heard my song on the radio in life, and then fast forward to 2000 and whatever year a Barbershop comes out. And, I would always wonder what it would feel like to be watching a movie and see your name go up in the credits. So, of course, one of my songs ended up in the movie, and I go to the movie theater, and I'm like sitting there looking at the credits, and then I see my name going up on the screen. I'm like, wow, that's deep.
I believe I told you this before, but I have an interesting story going on within my own household. Now, my 3 little boys, they are now reading credits on every movie that they will look at. They sit there and they actually read the credits, because I told them about my story when I used to do the same as a child, looking to see, even if it's just my first name, rolling the credits, and I'll feel good. Yes, there was a Curtis up there, or there was a Henry. And I don't know what, it gave me a sense of satisfaction. Or maybe I was foreseeing certain things of my name rolling there. So today I no longer have to sit and look for the credits at the end, because they are there at the beginning.
That's right.
Directed by. So maybe I was preparing for that at a very young age. And now my 3 boys, they do the same thing. They sit there and they read the entire credits, and they look for their name, look for someone named Joshua, someone named Daniel, or someone named Kimani rolling in the credits. And they, even at this young, tender age, they seem to get a lot of pleasure out of doing that. So it's a wonderful experience. And now you've stepped over into another arena as an author. Tell me, what prompted you to write Hybrid Executive?
Hybrid Executive happened by the way to me, but I guess it was a divine situation. And being a creative, I'm a creative person, so I did a lot of writing here and there and what have you. But it really started out as a pamphlet. So the same project I spoke about that we put out, the single, when we did that, we had like a gospel community in New York at the time, in Brooklyn, New York. And there were a lot of groups that didn't know how to go about getting their own cassettes done and things of that nature. So now I became like a consultant, so to speak. So folks would call me up, hey, how you guys did this? So I'm sharing this information and giving them the different, okay, well, you got to get your songs together, so it's from the songs, writing your song, getting it recorded, mixed,
You had the
and
roadmap.
right, and the mastering, and then now you take your mastering, and that's what you while you're having that prepared, you want to work on your artwork. So of course you got to pick a day to get pictures done. And so I'm telling them all of this information, and I said, maybe I should put a pamphlet together. And that really was what Hybrid Executive came out of. So we're talking since 91. And so I did the pamphlet first, but I had a typewriter, and then I had like maybe like a 2-page thing. And I was like, oh, I forgot to put this in. Or I forgot to put that in. And then I forgot to put this other thing in. And then I realized that, this might have to be a little bit bigger than a pamphlet type thing. So I started really writing that point. And then I'll put it down for a little while and pick it up and then put it down, So it went through a lot of different, it evolved, so to speak. So I think what really capped it off is when I went to do my degree at Full Sail. I was able to really nail certain things, that parts of the puzzle that I didn't have before, that I could actually really put something comprehensive together. And then, so that's really how that Hybrid Executive happened. And I think the fact that I'm also a teacher, when I explain things to people, they seem to get a clear understanding of what it is.
But before you tell me, what is a hybrid executive?
So if we look at what hybrid means, it means that next best thing of what it used to be. Sort of like, we once had the rotary phone,
I don't know what, I'm not that old, so what do you say?
You don't know what the rotary phone is. So, excuse me. So when you go from the rotary phone to now you have, devices like these where you can check emails and, it's sort of like a little computer, but it's really supposed to be a phone. This would be a hybrid to the rotary. And in the context of why I use hybrid in the title of the book is the role of the artist has changed. So when the artist was writing and recording and just creating the music, and when they were finished, they'll send the master to the record company, and then they'll go do their pictures, and then that will be sent to the record company, and they'll go and do, the record company would say, all right, what, your record is coming out in 3 weeks. I need you guys to go to Good Day New York, and then you guys would go on Sway Show, and I need you to go to the Breakfast Club, and I needed to go to here, and I needed to go to there. That part of the machinery is pretty much done. So the artist now has to write the material, record it, mix it, package it, prepare to market it himself or herself, or they have to do everything. They have to make arrangements to get to the interview by themselves. So you're doing more of, which was not a traditional part of what they had to do before.
No, so now has to become their own manager and publicity person and all of that, publicist.
Right, basically. So now the artist is the artist today is a hybrid executive by default, because now they have to evolve into that next role to achieve their goals as an artist or
so
group.
Tell me about the section you have in there about staying on course.
Okay, so staying on course has to do with opportunities being thrown at you that may look good, or it may look lucrative, and you decide to take a break from this and jump over, all right, let me let me get this over here because I could probably get a bag over here, or get some money on this, and then I can come back. Or anything that will distract you from what your goal is. And in that chapter, I'm saying, okay, you know what, stay on course. And I talk about a group that they did an EP, and they were hoping to sell that EP so they can actually go record a full album and then sell that full album and, create that to do their business. They did the EP, a label was interested, and they decided to not continue what their plan was. Stuck for like a couple months, nothing happening, and then the deal fell through. The label wasn't interested anymore. They lost about 6-8 months of momentum, and one of the members had to leave the group. So they didn't stay on course. They should have stayed on course, sell their EP, even if a label was interested, sell the EP, get your money back, go into the studio, do a full LP or a long play, a full album, 10 or more songs, and package that and bring that out to the market and sell that. And then they would have kept their momentum going, because they're building their brand. So the fact that they stopped to negotiate with a record company, they lost momentum, and the record company wasn't there to pick up the slack in the end. That deal fell through. So guess what? You jumped from what you were doing and lost in a big way.
Like the dog with the bone.
Right. So looking in the river, right? Right. So my encouragement is to, regardless of what's being thrown at you, stay on course. Stay on course and achieve step by step what it is your vision is. Try to get it done. Find a way to get it done. And once you step off, then there's unless you're really guaranteed that, if I take a U-turn here, or if I just jump off the path and do this, if it's not a guaranteed situation, just stick to your guns and move forward with it. And that's what staying on course is.
I remember several years ago, I went to a seminar and I met Spike Lee. And I formed this long line to get up there to speak to him. And I told him I have this script and I want to shoot this movie. And, I'm going back to I believe it was like the 90s, somewhere there. And he stood there and he's listening to me. And I figured he had this world of information to give me at the end of my plea to him, about what it is I wanted to do. And Spike looked up at me and patted me on the shoulder and he said, "Don't give up. Never give up." And turned to the other person. And you're laughing, man. This is fun. Well, I stood there looking at Spike and I said, this man made me spend my $50 to come to this seminar. Stood in a line for about 45 minutes to get to speak to him. And then with his short little behind, the man is going to pat me on my shoulder like a little kid.
Don't give up.
I said, don't give up. And then turn his direction away from me. And I'm standing there and I'm saying, what? I walked away feeling a bit dismayed and I shook my head, and years later, it's still ringing in my head. Don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until 2011, not giving up, I was able to write, produce, and direct my own movie. And when it was done and other people came to me with the same plea and telling me what they want to do, and they have this script, and guess what I do? I pat him on the shoulder and I said, never give up. Whatever you do, never give up.
You know, I think those of us who that's such a nice story. I think those of us who've been through something and you hear someone getting ready to jump in the, you know, you went into the pool, you know what the pool has going on. He can't tell you in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even a half hour what it's like jumping in the pool. So he had to cut it all the way down and say, what's the best thing I could tell this guy? And he said to you, don't give up, which is probably the best thing you needed to hear. Of course, you didn't want to hear that at the time.
At that point in time, yes, I did not. No, I did not want to hear that.
Yes.
But
yes.
believe it or not, those are words that I still live by today.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Never give up. Never give up.
You know, recently, as you said that, my school, Full Sail, you know, they do, every now and then, there'll be some lecture or presentation or workshop. And they recently had a mastering engineer on. And so, you know, he's talking about the mastering market, and he's starting to take questions. He said, all right, well, you know, what is mastering? And you know, there's actual students that's enrolled at Full Sail as well. I'm just an alumni in the lecture, right? So I'm there, like, you know, I'm just taking it in. And he says, well, people come to mastering for perspective. And I kind of paused a little bit, and I say, you know, he's so right, but I don't think the students would understand what he's saying in that moment. What do you mean perspective? You know, because mastering, if you know, in layman's terms, mastering is the final process that you put your music through before it goes out to the market. So even though it's mixed, like you mix your song or you mix your album, mastering is the last thing to sort of uniform the frequencies, and, you know, making sure that the bass isn't too much, or making sure that it's not too bright, making sure that you can hear the mids. So you're dealing with a lot of different frequencies and stuff like that. So when he says perspective, that's what he's talking about. The songwriter wrote the song, the musicians came to the studio, recorded the music, the singer sang the song, the engineer engineered it, then the guy who had to mix it, he mixed it, and then now he's taking this and send it to the guy that's doing mastering. And they're sending it to him for perspective. Because now he's the person, he's literally the sonic king. And you know, so in when you said what you said in reference to Spike Lee, I knew some of the students didn't want to hear perspective. Like, you know, I can't put perspective in a test and get that correct.
Some of these things are life lessons, and it takes a while for it to actually sit in, for it to sink in. And
Correct.
Throughout the course of time, somewhere it's going to hit home, and then you say, oh, that's what he was speaking about.
Yeah.
Allow me to backtrack for a second. I want to talk about one of your albums, The Gospel According to Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who knows me knows I am in no way, shape, or form close to anything that you would describe as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to tell you, The Gospel According to Sam is by far one of my most favorite albums overall. I'm not saying my most favorite gospel album.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying my most favorite album. I put it right there next to Gregory Isaacs' Night Nurse, right next to Bob Marley's Uprising.
Mm-hmm.
The Gospel According to Sam is up there in that category.
Oh, okay.
Anyone who knows me know that I used to do a lot of traveling back in the 90s, early 2000s. I would drive a lot. I drive from New York to to Montreal, New York to Toronto, New York to Miami, New York to Texas, up and down the East Coast, stopping in and out of every state on individual trips. And I never leave home. I've never left home without my Gospel According to Sam album. That opening track on there is the very first thing I put into the deck once I hit the highway. Guide my steps, Father. Guide my mind. And I have to give you kudos on that, brother. That is by far one of my most favorite albums overall. And I've listened to a lot of music over the course of my life. And Gospel According to Sam is up there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I guess you want a little backstory on the Gospel According to Sam, a little something.
Go ahead, but tell us about it.
So my first CD is Soca Therapy. And the second CD is The Return. Soca Therapy gravitated to a certain audience, and then The Return gravitated to a different audience. Interestingly enough, a lot of people who bought either albums said to me, you know, I'm hearing a lot of gospel in you. Now, these are two secular albums. I'm hearing a lot of gospel in you. Like, I hear like you're a spiritual guy, and you know. So this was sort of like the sentiments of people that, you know, they listen to Soca Therapy, and you know, so even though they were secular songs, they were like, I feel a gospel energy, you know. So I said, you know what, let me listen to the people a little bit. And I was in creative mode. So I said, all right, let me really get into the zone. And I went into the zone and I started writing. And of course, I'm influenced by Charlie's Roots and David Rudder. So, well, and Tambu, of course, gotta throw Tambu in there. And I tapped into that a little bit. I also listened to Joseph Niles as a kid. And Joseph Niles might have been one of the very first artists that, on a Caribbean level, brought gospel in a Caribbean way. And I appreciated him because a lot of churches in the Caribbean did not accept culturally what's happening in that environment. They never believed that that could be used in a worship setting. You see what I'm saying? So even though we have the dialect and it's the calypso feeling or a soca feeling or what have you, there's this school of thought that this is not worthy, the genre is not worthy to be used in the environment of worship. God is not pleased with this. Now, I don't know where that came from. It might be a slavery thing. Maybe the slave master didn't understand it, and you know, he cautioned the slaves, you can't do this in here. And you know, everyone is just keeping the word of Massa over time. You know, so Joseph Niles, well, we had in the same Mount Pleasant village, before we moved to the side of Bethany, we stayed in my grandmother's house, which is closer to the church. But behind my grandmother's house, there was a family there. They're still there, called the Titans. And the Titans had a sound system. And their sound system supplied the village. Like, you could be anywhere in the village and listening to either Shadow or Blue Boy, who later became Super Blue, the Wailers, Peter Tosh. I mean, they would buy records and be pumping music in the village. Shout out to the Titans. On Saturdays, they knew that their neighbors were Seventh-day Adventists. So Saturday mornings, they would play Joseph Niles. So we would hear songs like Saturday morning, they played Walking on the King's Highway with Joseph Niles. I don't know if you know that record. Walking on the King's Highway, walking on the King's Highway, walking on the King's. And, you know, tunes like that.
Remember, it's Trinidad I grew up, so.
Just making sure, you know. Yeah, it has some people from Trinidad and they never take the boat and come to Tobago at all, you know. But so shout out to the family and the memory of Joseph Niles. I understand he passed on a couple of years ago. But anyway, I sort of tapped into the memory of what Joseph Niles did. And of course, that mixed with me and mixed with the influences of Roots. I really went in a creative journey on that album. And the album actually wrote itself, so to speak. There's a creative realm that you go into that it's not really all you. It's like you're pulling stuff from the universe, and you know, it's creating itself. And some folks are afraid of that process because
just the vessel.
Yes. So I'm pulling the vibe, and you know, the messages were very, very, they were sound messages. And of course, with my musicianship, it became what it became. And that album initially was a lot of pain, I will say. There was a lot of kickback from a couple of my peers. You know, they were like, "Yeah, I ain't like that album. You know, you're not going to heaven with this kind of stuff," and that all types of crazy stuff.
How was that album accepted by your church members?
I will say maybe 1% accepted. The other 99 thought I was. The other 99 thought I was was off my rockers. But you know, the interesting thing is, one of the things I notice with people who are game changers, they're not necessarily favorites. They're not necessarily people that will do things that everyone expects them and that they would like that what they will do. You know, people who really move and shake and create things, you know, they just bring it to when it is. Because there's a lot of moments in my life I could remember that I just broke the mold. I just brought it. So when I brought it, they didn't receive it, but other people received it. Other denominations received it. And there were even folks that weren't even like people like yourself. You know, you're not necessarily into the Christian faith like that, but you know, you felt something from the album that it spoke to you, and you're like, you know what, I love this project. And you know, so it went where it had to go. I had an uncle, I don't know if I shared this with you one time, but I had an uncle I gave the CD to. And he took the CD, never opened it, put it on his shelf, and it was on there for like 3-4 years. And then a neighbor of his came to him and said, "Are you related to a Sam Archer who sings gospel? He has an album called Gospel According to Sam. This is his neighbor now." And he says, "Oh, that's my nephew." She said, so she starts talking about the project. She's like, "This music is amazing. It's blessing my soul." And she goes off on the project. He says, "But I have it right here."
Still wrapped up in the plastic.
So that's when he decided to open it. He said, "Well, let me see what this lady's talking about." And he pops it in. so just imagine how many people who might have just bought it to appease me. They're like, well, yeah, it's Sam. Okay, thanks. All right, yeah, okay, good. And they just bought it and put it in the corner. But I would say this, though. I will say it like about 10 years after that, let's say like around 2010, 2011, a lot of the people who were against the album actually came back and said, yo, you know what? When this project came out, I was upset. I didn't really like how but I eventually listened to the album. The messages sound, I really like it right now.
It took some time, but eventually you won them over.
It took some time. And I mean, I had dates where people would call and say, so is this Mr. Samuel? Yeah. You're supposed to be at a church tomorrow. I say, yes, everything is good. We no longer need your services. Oh, okay. Thank you. Be blessed anyway. All right, good. Thanks. I got a lot of calls like that. Where they'll just, oh, no, don't bring him here. He can't, no, don't bring him here. You have Sam Archer coming to your church? Don't bring him here. He ain't going to heaven singing this stuff. I mean, this is what I went through with that record. And funny enough, it's my highest selling CD today.
Listen, maybe long after you're gone, a different generation would still be discovering the gospel according to Sam and loving it and telling their parents about it. And then some of these same people will wake up and say, wait a minute, Sam, you mean Sam from back in whatever day? And their children may be the ones that's getting them hip to it. But tell me something, Sam, do you have a bucket list? Is there anything left for you to accomplish?
I'm still expanding my horizon. So I don't know if it's a bucket list. I think I'm just being led. Everything so far is sort of like a leading. So the music, to doing the documentary with Nadira, to completing the book. I mean, the sky's the limit. So I mean, I have a few.
Personally or professionally?
You mean the professional ones? One of the things I regret, and this is just for me personally, I don't know if this is going to help anyone, but I'll share it, and it's a little bit transparent. On one level, I was a staunch Christian at one point. And because I was very staunch, there were a lot of opportunities that were beneficial that I look back at it and realize that, I should have taken that opportunity here. And because I think I had my Christianity wasn't balanced at the time. You know what I'm saying? It was more of I was more like a monk. You know what I mean? It's like it's almost like a male nun. You know what I mean? Like you're just all the way over there. And I think that barred me from opportunities that weren't necessarily wrong, or opportunities that weren't against anything spiritually, or anything in the Bible. It's just that, okay, I'm all the way over here and I'm not touching this over there, or I'm not entertaining certain things. So when you're like that, you miss opportunities that can benefit you, and not just in a financial way, but in terms of certain relationships. And so there's some relationships that should have been, made, because I was just, I would say again, unbalanced, or just totally all the way to the left with it. So to me, that's like a regret, but not a regret to to jump off a bridge, but it's more like a learning curve. You know what I mean? It's like a learning lesson. It's like you're learning, like, you know what? Okay, I made that mistake. And being that I changed that whole thing about me, I started to progress a lot better. Things started falling into place a lot better.
Sam?
Yes, sir.
How would you like to be remembered?
That's a good question. I never dwelled on it. Who dwells on death, right? But I would like to be remembered in a good way.
Don't mistake me. This is not about death. This is about your legacy.
Mm-hmm.
How would you like to be remembered?
As someone who followed his path, as someone who was honest, a good friend, corny, funny, someone that was, you know, that's good and positive. I want to keep good, positive energy, and remember good times and so on. I think that would be a good legacy to leave behind.
This brings me to the section of the show I like to call rapid fire. I want to ask you a couple questions, and as the children used to say, no hesitation, no concentration, just answer me off the top of your head. It's not that serious. It's not that.
I'm not going to get in any trouble, huh?
No, it's not that serious. Who's your favorite gospel artist of all time?
Lord have mercy.
You're thinking, man. You're thinking.
Yeah. No, I mess up. Let's go with Mahalia Jackson.
Mahalia Jackson. Who's your favorite artist of all times?
Michael Jackson.
If you had the opportunity to record with any artist of today, who would it be?
Brian McKnight.
Thank you, sir. Personally, I would love to see you on the keys, playing alongside Alicia Keys or John Legend. I would love to see that.
That's nice too. That would be really nice.
Sam, before you leave, please tell the people where they can find you.
Most of my information is at samsdigital.net. That's the marketing website. Folks can get my music at samuelarcher.bandcamp.com. Most of my titles are there. Some of the titles, they can get it on Apple Music and Spotify and Tidal and Amazon and places like that.
And social media?
Yes, they can get to me on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram. Well, Instagram, I don't have a personal Instagram page. Instagram, it's Musalog, which is the magazine, the online music magazine that I have going on. So that's how they can get me on Twitter, on Instagram, sorry. At Musalog, Muzilog.
Samuel Archer.
Yes, sir.
It has indeed been a pleasure having you here on Caribbean Chat. If ever you're in town, I want to extend this invitation to you again. Please stop on by the studio and let's do this again.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me. Shout out to the Caribbean Chat team. And I look forward to doing this again.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.